Boom. Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. It is Inside the Game. I'm John Turner alongside Nathan Wangler. It is Monday, April the 7th. We are back, episode number 58. And yes, I was not here on Thursday and Friday. You obviously, Nathan, took the reins on Thursday, had a great conversation with a good friend of yours and the SID over down there at Bethel University. And Mr. Last name is Schrock?
Yes, Schrock the world.
Yeah, so a great conversation with him on Thursday. I actually watched most of that show from my Delta Airlines DL 1504, direct from Detroit, DTW to SAN in San Diego, where I landed at approximately, I think it was 2:30 here in the East. It was 11 o'clock in the West, and that was a good day. And I'll tell you that, like we spent, traveling. And I don't, you could probably attest to this on some level. Travel days can suck.
They kill you. Especially going to the West Coast. When you're switching time zones, yeah.
No, and I was saying there's something my wife and I, when we start planning family vacations, when we start thinking about this with our kids, is that we always wanted to, so if we're going to go on a trip someplace, we always wanted to leave if we're there for 5 days, we wanted there to be a travel day on either side. So the 5 days was the 5 days, right? It wasn't going to be this, you travel in and that's a day, right? No, and if we did do that, we would do it where we arrive really early on a day and then we leave on a very late on the day we're leaving. So if we weren't going to able to do exactly what we wanted, we'd at least have that full kind of day to do what we wanted to do. But yeah, we arrived and we stayed in a place called La Jolla, which is a suburb of San Diego. It's still considered San Diego. It is a very, very affluent area. We are real close to our hotel. There was a street from our hotel. Then there's kind of like a little kind of park area, and then from that park area, right down a cliff. Ocean. So we are a couple hundred yards probably from our hotel to the ocean. And again, you think about when you go, near the ocean, a lot of times you're like, okay, you'll walk down, maybe you just walk right to the beach and there you are, right? Well, again, not where we were, there's a 70 or 80 foot bluff, and then straight cliff down, right?
Yeah.
Into the so you couldn't go into the ocean if you wanted to in a lot of these areas. And so we got there on Thursday, we walked down to the ocean, and the first thing that got me was how beautiful it was. And the second thing was this just stench. This stench. I can't really explain it other than this stench.
Okay.
And you're gonna say, well, what was this? What was this stench? Well, so in California, specifically in this part of California, in La Jolla, there is, and I'm going to try and show a picture of this. I need to show a picture of this in order for it to make sense. But there's a part of the year where from December to May, where there's like mating season for sea lions. All right. And so this picture is going to do it right here. So this picture, so all these right here, those are all sea lions just hanging out right there, dude. Like they're all just chilling. Okay. And dude, there's a ton of them, right? They're just everywhere. All right. And they're just having a ball, man. Look out there, this is actually a video, but they're just everywhere. Barking. Oh yeah.
And they're loud too, especially with how the volume travels on the water. You can hear them for forever away.
But yeah, they're just everywhere. So, anyways, the stench is that obviously they're all laying down there and they're all like doing their thing. But yeah. So they're you see some dead ones lying around. Obviously, that's nature at its finest, right? So it's just, yeah, beautiful and stench all at the same time. Just a really beautiful area. I had a blast, but by the time, so I got to say this because this is important. I know we're gonna get into some soccer stuff here in a moment, but I think I need to really kind of like paint this picture. We get into our hotel room, we check in, and we walk up to our room. And as soon as we walk in, like, whoa, we get hit. It is blowing heat. The whole room is blowing heat. So, I mean, it's pumping it out. So someone the night before, like, put the heat on and, like, just let it roll, dude. So we're in. I go to the thermostat and I start. It's at 85. So I set that first off. Whoever said 85, that's insane. Okay, clearly they're not from Michigan or from the Midwest. So I turn this thing down to like 70, and after 5 minutes, it's still pumping out 85-degree heat. It is not. It's not getting any cooler, right? So we have the door open, the windows open a little bit. It is. We call the front desk and they're like, "Why don't we just get you a new room?" Okay, fine. So we pack all of our stuff up. Go down to the lobby, new room across the way. We go into the new room. As soon as we get in the room, we put our stuff down. We're like, we're hungry. Let's go get something to eat. But we noticed like this knocking sound, like this, like pounding. We hear ratchets. So we hear there's some kind of construction happening somewhere below us or around us. So, but we didn't pay attention to it too much, Nathan, at that point. We were hungry. So we leave. Go out. As we're walking downstairs, we realize what that knocking was. Directly underneath our floor, they are working on another room. And so they're hammering, they're sawing. It's all been happening directly underneath our room. So we leave, come back. We're tired. We're exhausted. We've been flying all the morning. We're just eating, so we're hungry, we're full, right? So you get tired. You get tired. You're full. What do you want to do? Want to take a nap? These guys are hammering away, man. They're just hammering away. We're sitting there going, this is ridiculous. So I call the front desk and go, hey, clearly there's construction happening underneath our room. Like, oh no, we shouldn't have moved you there because like no one's there right now because of all the construction. I said, oh,
construction.
So we're gonna move you to another room. So I go, this time it better be the presidential suite.
Yeah. Help me out a little bit. Give me something here.
We move to another room, back to the main part where we were. This time a level higher, and we get up there, and I saw I'm tired, but I'm kind of like I need a fresher, so I want to take a shower. So I go to hop in the shower, turn on the water. I hop on in, and it's cold water. I'm going, oh, okay, maybe I just didn't do it right. Sometimes in the shit, you're not used to it, right? Cold water, man. It is freezing cold. It's freezing cold water. I come out of the shower and I go to my friend. I'm like, dude, it's cold water. He's like, what do you mean it's cold water? I'm like, no, it's cold. He's like, no, you're just kidding. So he goes in there and he takes a shower. He's like, no, you weren't kidding. No, and it was ice cold water. Very invigorating, by the way. Very, very invigorating.
Oh, wake you up.
It'll definitely wake you up, especially if you want to stay awake. Call down to the front desk and be like, hey, the hot water is not working. Oh, yeah, they're working on the boiler right now. We'll get that fixed for you. Okay, cool, right? So that was that TV didn't work.
That's what the construction was? They were working on the boiler the whole time?
No, the boiler was just being worked on. I don't, so it happens that everything is kind of going wrong at the same time, at this hotel. And the funny thing is I didn't pay for this hotel. My friend's company did, and for his trip, and like $600 a night is what this room costs, right? $600 a night. So, I mean, if I was paying, I would have been.
Seems worth the price of admission. I mean, the sound of drills and hammers could be relaxing to some.
I don't want to make come off like this is like no. It was just
right.
Nuisance. I mean, a whole other story, another location. My wife and I and kids, we went to Traverse City here a few years back, like right at the end of the summer, kind of like a last minute little hoorah right up north, and want to spend a couple nights in Traverse City just hanging out as a family. And we rented one of these condo things up in Traverse City, and we check in, we go to open it and go into our room. I put the key in, whatever, and I start to walk on in, and I walk in, and there are two people in the bed. I'm like, whoa, wrong room. I mean, we went to the wrong room, right? It's like, So I called on the front desk and they go, "Oh, we must have just double booked that room." I go, "You think?" I just walked in.
No.
I would love to know people's people's thoughts on these types of stories. You think about this, right? And you go, okay, I mean, a lot of people have these crazy airline stories, right? Like every time they go on an airline, it's just whatever. Or you go here, right? We joke around about this, but you actually talked about it on the air because I was on Delta Airlines on Thursday. But Spirit Airlines, when you get to buy a ticket and you arrive at the gate, a lot of times, you're handing them a bag and you're getting a ticket. Well, as you're giving them your boarding pass, they're handing you a wrench, right? And the reason why is they want you to fix something when it breaks on the plane, right? They need our help.
When the rotor breaks, you got to screw it back in really quick.
Before everybody has a wrench, we can all help each other get there safely. That's kind of like their mantra. Yeah. All kidding aside, but I mean, and
it's never crashed. I'm just saying, you got a bunch of mechanics, first-time mechanics on the plane. They're going to get it done because they all want to get there in one piece.
I'm just curious people's thoughts, on their travel woes and what kind of traveling that they've experienced here, over the years. But let's get into some soccer here, man. Busy weekend here, busy week of soccer. We know U.S. Open Cup happened last week. The third round announcements were made. Those games will actually take place next week. Detroit City FC will actually be hosting a game here locally, which is fantastic. So U.S. Open Cup, man. I know you alluded to this about how there were 13,000, 12,000 fans at a game. And that does show you how far the lower level soccer in this country has come. Right, we talk about it all the time. I mean, Detroit City FC was drawing 3,000 and 4,000 fans when they first started here back 10, 15 years ago. We had Grand Rapids, a team in Grand Rapids that would be filling 4,000 or 5,000 people. That was back. They don't have that team anymore. It's gone. I think it was Grand Rapids FC was the name of the team. And now there's a new one coming about. But they were playing their home games at a high school soccer stadium, and they were filling 4,000 or 5,000 fans into that stadium each and every weekend. So there's a lot of lower level teams that are able to kind of grab and encapsulate their community that will then draw on these fans. I think that the overwhelming problem in amateur soccer is not that you can get these one-offs, because these are one-offs. They're not consistent. You don't have a consistent fan base of 3,000 or 4,000 people. You'll go from 5,000, 3,000 or 4,000 people to 200, and then to a game that's got 50, and then to a game that's got 400, and then a game that's got 3,000. There's not a consistency amongst these teams, and that's again because there's just too many of them. And again, from what we've talked about in regards to how soccer has developed over the years, when I was playing out of high school and into college and at that amateur level, you didn't have all these different league options. It was just, you played in this, at that time it was just called the NPSL. There might have been a couple different leagues that kind of fell under that were more localized, but now we have all these national amateur leagues like the NPSL, League for Clubs, Midwest Premier League, UPSL, the American Premier Soccer League. I mean, you have all these leagues, USL League 2, that are these national based leagues that you have to pay a lot of money to get into, and in a lot of cases to get into the league, and then to operate your team costs upwards of $25,000 to $40,000 a year over the course of a 3-month period. It's just a lot, and unfortunately, that's what's going to hinder growth in this country is the amount of leagues that you can play in and how you draw fans, because the fans are going to pay. If you have fans who are willing to pay you $10, $15 to come watch a game, and you can get 100 people to come to a game, I mean, that's $1,000 a game, right? I mean, you do that 10 times a season, you're making 10 grand. That helps pay the bills. It's just the problem is how do you get those fans?
Yeah. So what made me so excited about it when I saw initially that video, by the way, to briefly touch on the whole travel stories, my parents, my sisters, maybe Dan Stickrat, Victoria Quay lives there, have all been to California. I've never been there once. I keep hearing these stories. I'm going to jump through my roof one of these days because they actually took a trip to San Diego when I was in the middle of the baseball season. That was not great, not a great feeling. But anyways, I need to get out there. But what I'll say is, like, the thing that excites me is I think the biggest part of building the soccer world in the United States, it all has to come back to how do we generate excitement in the community. And I know that there are a lot of leagues, and sometimes that makes it watered down because there are certain areas of the country that just certainly aren't really inclined to have big support groups, and some teams are frankly just playing at facilities that don't really garner a whole lot of want to come out and watch the game. I know certain teams, you'll be on top of a storage container, if you're calling the game. And in some places, they really don't have seats. Like, you better bring a folding chair because that's as much as you're going to get. And then there are other places that have big, beautiful stadiums. And so it allows you to actually come in and get a ticket and have a seat and be amongst a bunch of people. And I think location is the most important thing when you talk about this. Yeah, it's the level of play, but when you think about Detroit City FC, they play in a stadium that is historic. It has been there for a long time. It's a destination. It's a staple, so that's what brings the people out. And you talk about the team that's coming to Grand Rapids, that's what they're attempting to do. They used to play at what's called Houseman Field. So Houseman was actually the football stadium for Grand Rapids Community College back when they had a football program. And they were nationally recognized. They won national championships. And so the facility was nice while they were playing there. But obviously, since they stopped playing there, it got turned over to Grand Rapids Public Schools. And so the high school teams are playing there now, and they haven't updated the turf in 20-some-odd years, and the stands are kind of falling apart. So it just – there wasn't – that's, I think, the biggest reason why they weren't able to sustain it was because of that. So that's why they're going to put this new one downtown. And what it does for me, at least, is it creates, number one, a community feel. Because I think – Grand Rapids is the best minor league market in America. At least it has been voted, at least in the top 5, if not number 1, for the last handful of years. So there's that part of it too. But putting it in a prime location, having a good facility, and I know all this stuff takes money. I get it. And we've talked about the financial concerns of these organizations, and how much can you invest and how much exactly are you going to get back. But it starts with a good facility. It starts with being in a good area, but it also starts with creating excitement around these local matchups, like these different leagues and these teams playing within this city and within this area. Like the approach to me, and it's why it's so important that we always have this conversation, and why we, at National Soccer Network, why we focus on specific communities and specific clubs, maybe at lower levels. Because when you generate that excitement within the community feel, that's going to grow the game a whole lot quicker. Because when we have people coming out and supporting and thinking about and talking about the local team, that's only going to kind of build from the bottom up. I think that's where it all starts. And you're right, the growth has been terrific. And the nice thing was it was in Chattanooga. You know what I mean? That this isn't, in Southern California or some other place where it's like, okay, well, it's in an area that, is a little bit, the soccer culture is considered rich. Like, I mean, it's still in Tennessee, football is king, American football is king, but in Chattanooga, you have 12,000 people coming out to the game. Why? Because it's the two teams at the highest level from the state that they play in, playing in the U.S. Open Cup with a chance to advance on and win a title, right? So you got the storylines of USL versus MLS next. And I talked about this in a video that I did. The other storyline is you have two teams from Chattanooga. My guess is the group of players that are playing against each other probably have some sort of idea as to who's across the way from them. I'm not saying they're all from Tennessee, but, if they're that close to each other, if they're in the same state, typically I'm sure they've probably watched videos or heard things or seen things or social media. So there's all that other stuff. When you throw bragging rights into the mix, that changes everything. So that's why I like, and I know that when we talked about the team coming to Grand Rapids earlier in the year, you're like, well, how many more teams can we really add to the fray? You know what I mean? We have so many teams to begin with. My whole thing was, yes, but great stadium, downtown Grand Rapids, which, I mean, with it being beer capital USA and being a young city, I mean, to people who are out and about on a summer's night or on a spring night when it's warm and they've had a couple of beers or whatever and they're walking around, I mean, I'll go sit at a sporting event. I mean, they really want to capitalize on that. So location, building, and community feel. That's the other side of it. And so if there's, any way of creating more of that, in my mind, that's a good thing. That's where it starts for me. We can talk about the national team and talk about a lot of this other stuff, and I know people love hearing about it, but these are the types of games, these are the types of moments that are going to actually really start to gain some momentum for the game of soccer. It has to be a focus on the community itself in order to kind of build it from the bottom up. So that's why I like it so much. But yeah, I mean, there are leagues all over the place. And the truth is because they're businesses at the end of the day. Victoria Quay alluded to that when we were talking to her. It's a business of getting parents to spend money to play in leagues, and the truth is if you're good enough at it, you can make a decent clip at it, but it's tough because everyone, maybe thinks they can, but in some areas it's a lot harder than others. But are there too many leagues? Is it getting watered down? I guess I felt that a little bit when the USL introduced Division I. I'm like, do we really need another league? But to the other side, the more excitement we can create within these small communities, doesn't matter where they are, whether it's in Ohio, Michigan, Tennessee, Indiana, which I know has a lot of great clubs over there, and even across the United States. I'm all for it.
No, I'm torn on this topic. I'm torn on more. I am. I've said that before. Because I think that if you were to ask 10 soccer players who want to play competitively still, I'm sure all 10 of them would tell you that they want to play in the highest level they can possibly play at until they can no longer play at the highest level, right? I think you'll get varying degrees of that answer, but I think at the end of the day, that's what they want, right? If they want to continue on. But not all teams are created equal. Not all competitive teams are created equal, right? There's always going to be a varying degree of separation between the most talented and the least talented, right? And at that level, it could be wide ranging. But the gap between the highest level teams and the lowest level teams is not as high or large of a gap as it used to be. We know that because we talked about this. An NAIA team like Bethel University can go out and actually beat maybe a Division II, Division I program in the United States with their current talent. 25 years ago, that wasn't the case. Yeah, but it is now because the way that soccer has blown up in this country and gotten bigger. But my biggest fear is that there's so much of it and there's so many teams that it creates this thing where it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear because, again, in order for these teams to be sustainable, they have to be able to support themselves.
Right.
And these teams can't do that. If they are relying on local sponsorship, these local sponsors are going to get to a point where they realize that there's not upside into partnering with these teams on a long-term level. What is the upside if you're Allstate, Joe Smith, Allstate, insurance guy, whatever, right? I'm going to give $5,000 to this team every year. What am I going to get in return? Well, the reason you're doing that is to create exposure, is to create opportunity. That's why we invest, right? No different than anyone else we do. That's why we do it. So, is there a long-term, solution for that local advertiser? I don't think that there is. If they're fighting between that and a little league team, between that and this team, and where are you going to put it? And if they're not seeing the return, they're not going to stick around. So, and if fans aren't going to the games, there's not much to give back. But I do appreciate your perspective and your point of view, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that share the same sentiments.
It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And the truth is, taking you inside the American mind, like people, they can't keep track of all these different teams. And even talking about the Grand Rapids team, they're like, oh yeah, you hear about the new team that's coming to GR? And I stop every time and I'm like, well, there's already a team that plays at East Grand Rapids. There's already a team that plays, Midwest United. They have a USLW, USL2 team. there are already teams around. Like, what do you mean a soccer team's coming to town? We already got some, but they don't know about it, right? Because they're playing on backfields, or they're playing over here, or they're playing at this high school facility. But now they build this big stadium downtown, and these companies are supporting it, and some big money people here in GR want to bring another minor league team here because we already got volleyball, we already got baseball, we already got hockey, we already got basketball, so may as well add the last one. But it's tough for people to really keep track, and that's to that point, 100% I agree, and that's why I wish there was almost kind of like more of a concerted, combined effort by all of these different organizations to create something big, as opposed to having 17 different options, because it is watered down is the best way of putting that.
It is watered down is a great way of putting it. We'll move on here. Last night we announced here the high school rankings here in Michigan. It has been a long time staple of what we do here in the state of Michigan, and something that a few months back we weren't sure if we were going to continue to do it or not. And we brought in Patty Cesarini to work alongside Dan Stickrat to host that show. And first of all, I think Patty did a great job last night. So kudos to Patty taking the helm. That's something that I did for the previous 3 years. And I'm not glad that I'm not doing it anymore. I'm just glad I'm able to kind of pass that to somebody else and give the kind of like the torch, so to speak, to somebody else, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And I'm still very much involved in that show. I produced it last night, as well as, working on the graphics on the plane yesterday, leading up to, getting here yesterday afternoon back into Michigan. But I want to dive into these rankings a little bit. I know we talked about on the show last night, but let's dive into, these rankings. We'll start. I don't know why Division 4 didn't make it in. Actually, Division 4 did. Well, we'll take a look at it. Well, there's Division 4. For some reason, Division 1, I don't think made it in. But no, maybe 3. Yeah, 3 didn't make it in. Anyway, so take a look here at your Division 4 rankings here, state of Michigan. Remember last year, Jackson Lumen Christi, they won their first ever Division 4 state final. They are currently ranked number 1 in the state. Kalamazoo Christian was the runner-up. Kalamazoo Christian listed there at number 5. There were no honorable mentions in this specific week, but you've got like honorable Bloomfield Hills, Roper. I know Royal Oak Shrine was in there as well. Royal Oak Shrine, another very good team. Grosse Pointe Wood University Liggett, they're always in the conversation along with Clarkston Evers. This is always basically the same. Division 4 is always looking like this. Right, Jackson Lumen Christi is kind of like a new front runner, so to speak. Muskegon and Western Michigan Christian always in this conversation. North Muskegon always in this conversation. Auburn Hills Oakland Christian. Patrick Ray is a good friend of the platform. Jay Allen at Kalamazoo Christian. Plymouth Christian always in this conversation. Granville Calvin. Byron Center. All these teams are always here. Lansing Christian. Saugatuck. There's not a new team on here, I think, other than Jackson Lumen Christi, who, again, last year made their way into the rankings and stayed there, and they won the whole thing in a shootout. But that is a very much and very consistent Division 4 rankings for the Michigan High School Soccer Coaches Association.
Yeah, and how about the Muskegon area schools representing? Huh? They've been towards the top of the heap a lot in the women's soccer game and the men's soccer game too. You look at Muskegon Western Michigan Christian. Goodness gracious, yeah, their men's team made it all the way to the state finals. Now their women's team is obviously projected to get there, at least according to what you guys are saying here. And by the way, to circle back on what you said earlier, Patty did a great job. I caught a little bit of that. Good job by you guys again, but. Man, yeah, the Muskegon area schools, something about what they've been able to form, what they've been able to develop. It's really kind of cool to see, at least over here on the west side of the state. I know we talk about the east side, just that area, even just a little bit north of Detroit. It's kind of crazy how much soccer talent is embedded in that area of our state. It is really amazing to see, and it's the reason why they fill out these rankings week after week. Every time you guys do one of these shows, I feel like there's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, or maybe the entire conference that's on the top 15. That's what we generally see in the Detroit area. But looking over here on the west side, Holland's had some good teams. Grand Rapids, typically from time to time. Obviously, you see Byron Center is in that mix. Not the Byron Center, but Zion Christian's in there. And there's a couple of other ones. But, yeah, the Muskegon area has figured something out with the game of soccer. And I think Muskegon Western Michigan Christian is a prime example of that. And clearly North Muskegon, at least on the women's side, has something going on too. So at the lower levels, they've figured something out in Muskegon.
That they have. Take a look here at Division III. And here it is. Grand Rapids Catholic Central, West Side of the State again. Your number one ranked team in D3. Country Day, Grosse Ile, Warren Regina. Warren Regina actually practices out here outside of our, just outside our studio doors here at Premier Sports Center. Flint Powers Catholic, Traverse City St. Francis, Freeland, Frankenmuth, Notre Dame Prep, Almont, Grand Rapids West, Michigan Aviation Academy, Williamston, Essexville Garber, Allegan, and then Grand Rapids at North Point Christian. So, I mean, again, a very heavy west side of the state conglomerate there. Grosse Ile was the runner-up last year. Hudsonville Union Christian won Division III, but they are actually in Division II now. So,
Cornerstone, where I brought, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you here, JT. I was just saying where I've called a lot of college games. They typically focus in North Point Christian's been a big focus for them, and they're not too far from where the school is. I mean, you can pretty much throw a rock from the entrance of the university and hit Grand Rapids North Point Christian. So they've developed a lot of great players, and I know that they've been a focus, scouting wise. Just Warren Regina, what team was it that was in the room just behind us and we were recording once and they were watching film?
It was, I think it was Regina.
Oh, it was.
If it wasn't, it was Dakota, because Macomb Dakota also trains here as well.
That's what it was. I think that I think Macomb Dakota was the one. I think we were into the men's side playoffs, and I think they were watching film. So I was just saying, if Warren Regina's ever watching film, maybe you and I should stop over and watch some film and provide our commentary. I'm just saying we could probably help them hoist a trophy. At least you can, former coach.
Maybe I could. Let's move on to Division II here, and this is your top 15 for Week 1. Hudsonville Union Christian is mentioned. They won Division III last year. They are, I would say, they are a powerhouse soccer program on the west side of the state. And here they are. They jump into the next Division II, right? And here they are, and they are already number one. But Hudsonville Union Christian number one, Forest Hill Central, Marion, who went all the way to the state finals last year and fell to who? Number 5, Spring Lake. So Spring Lake winning their first ever Division II state championship. Mason's in there, DeWitt, Walled Lake Western, Farmington Mercy, Grand Rapids South Christian, East Grand Rapids, Huron, Estego, St. Joseph, and Goodrich. And again, a very heavy west side presence here. Hudsonville Union Christian, again, west side of the state. Forest Hill Central, west side of the state. Richland Gull Lake, west side of the state. Spring Lake, west side of the state. Grand Rapids South Christian, west side. East Grand Rapids, right? I mean, we're just like a lot of west side presence here in these Division II rankings.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I've been around Forest Hill Central, and Paul Kramer he actually came up to me at one of the basketball games. I didn't expect to see him there, but clearly he listens into the broadcast on the men's side. But him and I got a little thing going on. He recognized me, I recognized him, so I hope I get to go back there and call a few games. But man, you talk about gorgeous facilities. I mean, FHC on the men's side has clearly churned out some really good players, and that they were on a good little run here this year. So that was really cool to see. Obviously upset in the playoffs as, Northern was the one that actually marched all the way to the state final on the men's side. But, clearly on the women's side, they have a system too. So FHC is a school on the rise really on both ends, and clearly they've been kind of established on the women's side. My squirrel ate my tardy slip. Sorry. You have a pet squirrel there, Peter? I didn't know that was legal. Anyways, I
don't know if this was mentioned last night on the show or not, but if we just go back and look here at Division IV, Jackson Lumen Christi. Now, Jackson Lumen Christi, that's in Jackson. So it's not really, it's west of Metro Detroit.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's considered west side. But let's just say for argument's sake, maybe it is. Okay. Then you go Grand Rapids South Christian, west side team, right? Then you come to Division II, another west side team. So realistically, right now, it's 2 out of 3 are west side. But again, arguing that if Jackson is west of Ann Arbor, right? So I'd
say that's more center. Yeah, I'd say that's more Lansing ?
Yeah, well, I mean, Lansing
Well,
is north of Jackson, right?
that's true.
Maybe
Yeah, it
maybe.
is north of Jackson.
So I don't
Maybe
know
it's
where
south.
you consider like how far west you go, but
Right.
either
Yeah,
way. And now we look at
it's true.
Division One, and let's see what Division One looks like. Division One, you've got Saline.
Ooh.
I mean, so arguably, you could argue that
Right.
all 4 teams are West Side teams, maybe
Hmm.
because Saline is south and west of Metro Detroit, right? So I mean, it's down, it's north. I think it's south of Ann Arbor. Saline is. So again, or in that same kind of general area. So it's very interesting. But Saline is number 1. Utica Eisenhower is 2. Troy High 3. Rochester Adams are reigning Division 1 state champions. Portage Central, Rockford, west side of the state. Bloomfield Hills, Troy Athens, Brighton, Heartland, Mona Shores, which is Muskegon Mona Shores, Rochester, Romeo, Byron Center, and Ann Arbor Skyline. And if you look at this, OA Red has won the last 3 Division 1 state titles, both in boys and girls soccer. So how many teams are in the OA Red that are listed here? You got Troy High, Rochester Adams, Bloomfield, Troy Athens. That's 4. Rochester makes it 5. So 5 out of the 15 teams are in the OA Red. I think there's only 8 teams in the red, by the way. Rochester, Stony Creek, and Royal Oak is not in the red. They're just in the OAA. So you basically have 6 teams, including honorable mention, from the OAA that are on this top 15 or in the honorable mention for week 1. We'll continue to see that kind of continue to make waves. But Saline, here's the thing. Saline has been very, very good both on the boys and girls side here over the last couple of years. We've seen them. Matter of fact, I think Troy Athens, or not Troy Athens, Rochester Adams beat Saline in the state semifinals here this past fall, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I didn't call that game. I think you did. If you didn't, it was Giovanni that called that game. I believe it was Saline. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Northville. I know it was a downriver team. But good programs. I mean, Saline, Ann Arbor Skyline, these teams on the girls' side have been very good over the last number of years. They just haven't been able to get over that hump. And that's the thing, right? It's week 1. So these rankings, they mean nothing right now. We talk about that. They don't mean a whole lot. You know, we talk about this a lot, Nathan, in our when it comes to high school. Rankings are great, you know, for the pundits, for us to talk about. Yeah, woohoo, right? At the end of the day, you know, being ranked number 1 or being unranked and winning, at the end of the day, whoever's on the last day of the season, which is the championship Saturday, right? Or Friday, whatever, when those games happen in MSU, who hoists the trophy is all that matters.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, these things are based on reputation. That's what rankings are based on. They're based on reputation. They're also based on results. And typically they're based on last year's results, which we know things can change in a year. Things can change in a matter of a year. There's a lot of things that have to go right in the offseason in order to even have a chance to get back to winning a championship. And I think you know this inherently as a coach, and I know it from watching sports and being around it. Consistent success is the hardest thing to do. Getting there once, a one-off season where you have a lucky run, okay, that's fine. You know, people do that. Teams do that. It is what it is. But to get back there and do it consistently, especially at the high school level, especially when you're dealing with some of the things that you're dealing with sometimes at that prep level, it's a different story. So that's why I'm always amazed whenever we talk about Michigan high schools, and especially like the OAA Red. Like, there's a reason why I call it like the SEC of high school soccer, because like either way you look at it, there's going to be some team that emerges out of that collection, men or women's, that's going to end up making a deep run or making some sort of noise in the playoffs. So it's always amazing to see. But no, it's a good field. It's a competitive field, and I'm interested to see how it all plays out, because I think it might get interesting here really quick.
That it will, for sure. Trying to figure out why our names are on the screen. Is that probably that's when you were in charge here last week? I'm assuming.
Might be.
We had, oops, boom. Now they're gone. No need to have them twice. But yeah, obviously check out the ranking show every Sunday night, 8 p.m. here on the National Soccer Network. We've been doing that for 3 years. It's been your home for rankings for 4. Actually, this is we're in our 3rd year of doing it. The 3rd complete year, and then we will be in our 4th year, maybe in the fall. Who knows? But yeah, check it out every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the National Soccer Network. This weekend, the Ron Newman Cup playoffs, MASL, got underway this past weekend, and I think it went exactly as we thought it was going to go, just based on how things have been shaping up here. We're going to put those on the screen here in a moment. But, I mean, we can talk about each game here individually. But, again, what we thought was going to happen. Now, I was really thinking Kansas City might have a chance. Defensively, they were I think going into the playoffs, at least the last few weeks, were defensively one of the strongest teams. They weren't an offensive powerhouse, but if you're trying to get into a playoff final championship game, you want to do so probably, obviously, scoring a ton of goals, or if you're not scoring a ton of goals, stopping their team from scoring a ton of goals. And they seem to be doing a pretty good job of that throughout most of the season. They just weren't able to do that here this weekend. But if we look at these games for what they are, playoff game 1, which was on April the 4th, let me just zoom in here. It was St. Louis Ambush, right? St. Louis Ambush was that first game, and against Chihuahua Savage, and Chihuahua doing what they do best. They won 5-1. Again, they're not a very good road team. We looked at that throughout much of the season. Chihuahua is very good at home, right? Undefeated at home. And they were one of 2 teams that were undefeated at home this season. Chihuahua, but winning decisively with a 5-1 victory over St. Louis Ambush, who kind of struggled down the stretch, right? Towards the end there. San Diego, doing what they've been doing all year at home, right? They won 4-2, beating Empire Strikers, right? And then Baltimore Blast. This is a team in both Utica City, which is kind of a shocker because both those teams kind of came out from the bottom of the table this season and made their way into the mix and into the top 8. And they both fought. And if you're one of those 2 teams playing against each other like this, that was huge for them, because if Baltimore or Utica draws Chihuahua, San Diego, much more difficult draw. This was a much more favorable draw for them to be in this spot, right? And Baltimore comes away with that win, winning 6-2. Okay. Right. And then Milwaukee and Kansas City. I mean, Milwaukee has had times this year been really, really good, and at times have been really, really poor. Right? We've seen it kind of like just Jekyll and Hyde almost in Milwaukee. But they come away with a victory over Kansas City and get that 11-7 win, and they make their way into the semifinals where they played Chihuahua last night. And that one went into overtime. That was an exciting game. But Chihuahua coming away with a low far post shot that finds the back of the net in overtime, and they win 7-6 on a golden goal. I mean, you just can't ask for better soccer than that. And then San Diego, right. I mean, they just rolled right. over Baltimore. I mean, 11-3. And that's what San Diego can do. But now the finals. What are the finals? They are Chihuahua Savage and San Diego. I mean, this matchup has been it's been like 1 versus 2. It's been this thing all season long, and it's just been fun to watch. But so if you want to win this, if you're San Diego, if you want to win this thing, obviously I don't know who is hosting. I think San Diego did take first place, right? If I'm not mistaken, or was it Chihuahua that took first place? I don't have the standings right in front of me. But why not just look at them? That might be the better thing to do here. So Savage, I'm assuming, are going to host this 2 games, right? It's home and home, right? So, and I think if they end up tying, I think there's a third game. It goes back to, I think a third game goes back to where, again, I could be wrong in this, but both these teams are undefeated at home. They're the only team in the league. They're both 12-0 at home. I mean, what are we gonna see?
Right.
And what we've seen out of Chihuahua at home, and I wish there was like a goal differential here to show how many they score at home versus how many they score on the road. Yeah. Chihuahua does not fare well on the road. Look at the record. They're 8-4, but look, both of them are 8-4. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better matchup from a final standpoint. They're both 12-0 on the road at home. Yep. They're both 8-4 on the road.
Yep. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. It'll always be that way forever and ever. Amen. This is the 5th straight year that this is going to be decided between either Chihuahua and San Diego. That's it. It's going to be decided between one of these 2 sides. And that's the part about this, right? San Diego wins 2. Chihuahua goes back-to-back. Now they can become the first team in MASL history to win 3 consecutive Ron Newman Cups. And I talked about this on a previous show. By the way, with 3 different head coaches in that span of time. That's bizarre to me. And I think it's just because the players themselves kind of understand, again, how to play within their own dimensions. But I think we sold them a little bit short, JT, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. I think we did. Because I think we talked about they had an advantage at home because they know how to play the walls and they know how to play the deflections and they know how to do this and that. And that's great. 8-4 on the road, but I don't really think that tells the whole story because to me, they showed a lot of grittiness in that last win that they got and the one that they needed in order to punch their ticket into the semifinal. That was not an easy game. In Milwaukee, you talk about streaking at the right time. That was something you and I were very on top of in talking about where that team was in terms of how far they had come along this season. Because between Alex Sanchez and Frank Taiyu, I mean, when you have 2 of the top 3 players, and again, you're playing a team that is renowned in Chihuahua for not being very good on the road, what do you need you to do? You need your superstars to be superstars. And that's what Jorge Rios was. Jorge Rios, the lights weren't too bright. They were just bright enough, and he went out there and dominated the way he had done all year long. How do your stars operate in key moments? What are you laughing at? Who are you looking at?
Nothing. I'm not looking at anybody. What are you talking about?
Is there a bug on the wall or something?
No.
No, you need your stars to be stars in big moments, and that's exactly what he was. And that's why he operated in that moment and came up big. So yeah, they're not the strongest team in the world on the road, but they're gritty as hell. And so that's why I think this is going to be close. It's going to be competitive. I mean, the last time we saw, I got the chance to call the games. Chihuahua, shock and awe right out of the gate. That's how they got them. It's probably not going to be the same case on the road in San Diego, but there's a lot to like about this team, and they're a gritty bunch, and that's what's gotten them into this spot. But anytime you're going into the finals with the best player in the entire league on your roster, you got a shot. So I don't know if we're taking predictions or doing anything like that, but I'd be down for a gentleman's bet if it ever came down to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't know quite yet, but as you guys have, if anyone's been watching the MASL this season, they know that we've been able to cover 3 Chihuahua Savage games remotely on our broadcasts. We have not caught wind yet from the league, but there's a very good chance that we could, in fact, be involved in this process here for the finals. We'll know more about that later this afternoon. And again, if we don't, we don't. But we were able to really do a really good showing for them this season. They were very happy and pleased with what we were able to accomplish. So I was in conversation with them last night, and they're making that decision here this afternoon. So hopefully we'll be able to bring some breaking news to you here today that we are, in fact, going to be doing that. But either way, those games will kick off here, I believe, on Sunday night is when the first game will take place. So, or not Sunday, I think it's Sunday. So the 12th. Or Saturday. Either way, they'll start off here this upcoming weekend. But yeah. Anyways, that is the MASL right there. Here from this past weekend, Newman Cup playoffs taking place here, and the finals will take place later this weekend, as I had mentioned. So, yeah. So what can you expect from us the rest of this week? I know you would put out a message, post kind of on TikTok about, hey, getting more guests. Hey, we want to get more people involved in this show. I think a big part of fundamentally, I'm a firm believer that in order for a show to be successful, it has to have a good foundation from the host first, where, you really kind of build this, where people, hey, like listening to the two of us talk. And then now we've done a pretty good job of that. Now it's a matter of bringing in more guests, which will help us grow our audience. And so we're going to be focusing on that over the next couple months, is bringing in as many guests as we can with different outlooks and different perspectives on the game of soccer, and not just soccer, but other sports as well. That will help enlighten you and challenge you in how you think of the game and sports in general. So that will continue to happen. We're going to start that process here pretty quickly, as it's the next, I guess, way we evolve the show.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that. It is Monday, so that means I got to scoot here in a couple of moments to get ready for some of our additional production and business meetings that we have this morning. But I think the most important thing is what you can take away from today's show. First and foremost, make sure when you go to a hotel and you get into your room and the heat is kicking like it was, you don't unpack all your shit. All right, you wait. And that is the first one. Don't unpack your stuff.
Just pause.
Yep. Maybe just give it a second because you got to pack it all back up again. So make sure you know you're going to stay in that room, before you unpack all your stuff. That's number one. Number two is to maybe bring smelling salts when you walk by the beach in La Jolla, because especially from December to May, because it smells pretty bad.
Yeah,
I
imagine
it's bad. Cool for those. I mean, cool for those sea lions that out there mating in the right there on the. I mean, it just sounds so weird, right? You think, just who cares? Everyone's watching, whatever. Crowd just watching.
I guess they're allowed to. I mean, I do it. It's a problem, but if they
build
do
a privacy wall, it's just, what the heck, man? But yeah, no. So those are my tips. We'll dive into a whole bunch of other things here. It looks as people are kind of hopping in now. We got more people watching the show here out of nowhere, which is fantastic as we're getting toward the end of it. But yeah, I mean, that's those are my two thoughts. Bring something to help with the smell and don't unpack your bags until you get into your room and it's 100% sure you're going to stay in that room. I will also say this: the prices weren't terrible in regards to shopping out there. And maybe that's because we're so close to ports that you're not paying any additional charges for the gear to get to you. Like Lululemon was like under 100. Everything at Lululemon seemed like it was under $100 in California. And I know that I was in Michigan where you couldn't find anything under $100 at Lululemon. And I don't buy anything from Lululemon, but I mean, I happen to walk in there just curious. And yeah, I was seeing things for like $60, and I've never seen anything in Michigan for Lululemon under $60, under $100. So I think you're going to see it. So maybe got to go to California to buy some of that stuff that's coming in from out of overseas.
So spend all your money to go to California, buy it, and then spend all your money to come back. That's true. There you go. It's a
true story.
Cheers.
A lot more soccer coming up here this week on the National Soccer Net. We've got League for Clubs. Might have some MASL games. Definitely have some MLS Next games here on the platform here. Michigan Wolves games here on Saturday and Sunday. So a lot of games coming up here. Again, I think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 or 17 games again this weekend, which is great. But that'll do it for us here on this Monday morning. I'll be back at it again here tomorrow for episode number 59. And then, hey, on Wednesday, episode 60. So that'll be coming up here on Wednesday, on Wacky Wednesday. But from all of us here at the National Soccer Network, I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wanger. Be back here tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Inside the Game. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.